I have several videos on my channel where I give tips on how to make your locks thicker, and basically every time I make a video like this, I get comments like, oh, don't listen to her locks only look like this because she's naturally blessed with thick hair. Today I'm going to be addressing this once and for all. In this video, I'll be proving to you that basically anybody can have thick locks. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, then keep on watching. Before we go into this video, let me first clarify what I mean by thick locks, because I find that this is another topic for debate. I know some people, thick locks only mean like fat locks. So if you do not have like very big size locks, then to them you don't have thick locks. But for the purpose of this video, what I mean by thick locks is basically having the thickness of your strands to be as thick as possible regardless of your lock size, and also having hair that looks voluminous. Okay. I believe that thick hair is both a science and an art. Now, what many people fail to recognize, I find that many people who drop comments like this on my channel that, oh, she just has hair like this because she's naturally blessed with thick hair, is that they do not understand the art aspect of having thick hair. They just depend on just the science, but both of them work together to give you any thickness that you see at any given time. The science aspect has to do with things that are naturally the properties of your hair, and that's just a fraction of what eventually affects how thick your locks will be. For example, for me, comparing my hair rather to my brother's hair, I have a brother whose hair strands are like very thick. Like if you put his hair strand like how many centimeters away, you'll still be able to see it clearly. It's that fat. But my hair strands are not as thick as that, and I know that there are several people as well who do not have hair strands that are as thick as mine, you know. So how fat your hair strands are is basically one of the aspects of the science part, and that you cannot change to a large extent. However, I've heard several people make claims that Ayurvedic herbs have helped their hair strands to get fatter. So this also shows that even for that we think, okay, this is something that is innate, you can't change. People are saying that they can change it. So, but I do not have personal experience with this, so I cannot comment on this. Now, the next thing when it comes to science, the science aspect is the number of follicles that you have. Now, hair grows out of hair follicles, right? And you are born, everyone is born with a certain number of hair follicles. There's nothing that you can do to increase the number of hair follicles, right? And each hair follicle contains one hair strand. I think it's even possible to have multiple hair strands coming out from one hair follicles, but basically hair grows out of your hair follicles, and there's really nothing that you can do to change the number of hair follicles that you have. However, most of us are not maximizing the follicles that we already have, in the sense that many people end up having barren hair follicles due to several other practices. I'll talk about this later on in this video, but just bear in mind that when it comes to your hair follicles basically gives you the maximum number of hair strands that you can possibly have, because if you do not have hair follicles in a certain place, hair cannot grow out of that area. There's basically nothing that you can do to change the number of hair follicles that you have, or to have hair in an area where you do not have hair follicles. So, but I think science is also changing that as well. There are people who do transplants, you know, so even with that, you can change it. But ideally, naturally, there's really nothing that you can do to change the number of hair follicles that you have. Now, the next thing that has to do with science that you cannot necessarily change per se is your coil pattern. Everyone is born with a certain kind of coil pattern. Now, I've seen that there are people who feel that their coil patterns change over the years, you know. So this is actually put this point under asterisks, because ideally you have a certain kind of coil pattern. For example, if you're born with 4C hair, if you have 4C hair, when you become an adult, you're not automatically, your hair is not just going to magically change from 4C to 2C, you know, except you do something to chemically alter it, or if your hair is damaged. But ideally you have a certain kind of coil pattern that not necessarily born with, because many people, like I know that Afro people who have Afro textured hair, when we are born, our hair is not as kinky as it eventually becomes as we grow older. But generally speaking, you have like the broad category of what your coil pattern looks like, and you cannot naturally change that like completely. You can damage it, but you cannot necessarily change it. So here again, we see that even with this, people could claim that you can also change this as well. So those are basically when it comes to thick hair, those are basically the attributes or the aspects of having thick hair that has to do with science. And from our discussion so far, you can see that for many of them, you can alter them, you can change them, you still have power over them to an extent. So now let's move on to the art aspect, and this is the part that gets me the most excited. This is the part where you get to be creative. And when it comes to the art helps you to maximize what the science has to offer. And in addition to this, it helps to create an illusion that you got lucky with science. I know that what I'm saying may not make sense, but just stay with me. So when it comes to the art aspect, let's start analyzing all what I talked about, what science gives you. From the first one, the number of hair follicles that you have. Even though ideally you cannot change the number of hair follicles that you're naturally born with, but you have power over the number of hair strands that grow out of those hair follicles, right? You remember I said that most of us do not necessarily have problem with the number of hair follicles, because we are all born with enough hair follicles. That's not a problem. It is very rare, except if the person has a kind of condition. Most people have enough hair follicles on their heads. Like, that's not a problem, that's not an issue. So when people complain and say, oh, I do not have thick hair because I did not just get lucky and things like that, it's like, except you're born with a medical condition, or if you're obviously malnourished, many little children have, like, we are all born with good hair follicles. Where the problem lies is because of our bad hair practice, because of things that we are doing, we are not maximizing the number of hair follicles that we have, which means that we are not getting all the hair strands that we can possibly have, because some of our hair follicles are dormant because of our bad hair practices, or we have broken our hair strands mid-shaft, and so it looks like we do not have as much hair, or we do not have as much hair follicles. I hope you guys are getting me, because this is something that really excites me when I talk about. So many of us do not have issue with hair follicles. And when it comes to the art aspects, this is where good hair practices come into play, you know. And if you've been watching my videos, you know that I always talk about don't pop your locks. And when I say don't pop your locks, some people get offended, because it's like, okay, how do I keep my locks separated if I do not pop? You guys need to see how I handle my hair. If I were doing things that you guys are doing to your hair, to my own hair, I kid you not, I will not have hair like this. It's not even possible. I treat my hair with utmost care. I treat my hair like it's an egg that will break, you know. And I know that popping locks is something that is very popular in the lock community. So if your locks are starting to merge, you just yap. You just uproot hair strands, break hair strands, and things like that. It may look like everybody is doing it, but you see, if you want to maximize what science has given you, if you want to make sure that you keep as many as possible, like as many hair strands that can grow from your hair follicles, you want to keep them as much as possible on your head, then you need to go the extra mile, or being extra careful and extra gentle whenever you're handling your hair. That is the secret. One of the secrets to thick hair. And I've said this 1 million times already, but some of you still do not get it. It's so unfortunate. Now let's move on to the next point I talked about, you know, the coil pattern, which I said earlier that you can't necessarily change it. But you can. You may not be able to change it. For example, if you're born with 4C hair, or if you're born with straight hair, you cannot miraculously, as you get older, suddenly have 4C hair. You know, that's not something that can happen. But with the art, aka how you handle your hair, you can maximize what you're already born with. So we know that people's hair coil patterns change due to several bad hair practices. For example, if you have heat damage, obviously the hair on your head is not going to be your natural coil pattern. If you have extremely dry hair, obviously you're not going to be having your coil pattern on your head, you know, things like that. So when it comes to the coil pattern, keeping your hair as healthy as possible, as hydrated as possible, will give you your rich coil pattern. And the more juicy and rich your coil pattern is, the easier it's going to be for you to maximize your thickness. And I'll talk about this in more detail later on in the video. In addition to the fact that the art can help you maximize what science has already given you, it can also help you to create an illusion that you got lucky with science. And this is you know, remember I said that when I start talking about the art I get very excited. This is actually the part that gets me the most excited. As you guys can probably tell already. So what do I mean by illusion? I mean, using art, you can make your hair look thicker than it actually is. This is a game changer. This is a huge game changer. And this is actually a skill I learned when I had loose natural hair. I did all sorts of things with my hair. I understood my hair and I did all sorts of things with my hair and made my hair look like, I made it look like you have so much hair. It was amazing, and I've actually gone on to apply many of these techniques that I learned when I had loose natural hair into my now lock journey, and that's why my hair looks like I have an afro even though I have locks. So obviously I have 4C hair, I have kinky coily hair, but I watch videos, hair videos from basically anyone that has hair on their head, whether they have straight hair or curly, or you know, I watch all sorts of videos and I get to see how diverse the human hair can be. And I think that you will be doing yourself a disservice if you only watch videos from people or stylists who are handling hair that only look like yours. There's a lot that you can learn from other people. For example, I am very, very fascinated by wash day videos of people who have looser coils, you know, let's say from 2C to like 3C kind of hair. Because, you know, with our kinky coily hair, our hair looks voluminous whether it is wet or dry, you know. But when you see wash day videos of people who have looser coils, you get to see how their hair transforms when it is wet versus when it is dry. When it is wet and weighed down, it looks so stringy and so scanty. And then when they style it, and many of them have mastered how to style and voluminize their hair, when they style their hair, it looks so much bigger, and it's like, I can't believe this is the same head of hair. And I've learned from that technique that volume, when it comes to volume, when it comes to thickness, it's all about it's all about the art of how you play with your hair, you know. And it's going to be different for different people. Like for me, the more I understand my hair, the more I play in my hair, the more I understand things that I can do, how to, you know, maneuver in my hair to make it look thicker than how it actually is. For someone like that who has, like, let's say 3C hair, for example, the state of their hair when it is wet, that is actually the true state of their hair. You can see all the hair strands one by one lying closer to their scalp, and that's actually the reality of the amount of hair that they have. But they have learned how to just, you know, play with it, and by the time they are done styling and drying their hair, it pulls up, it looks so much bigger. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about why this happens later on, but I just feel like when it comes to thickness, when it comes to volume, it's all about the art. It's all about the art. I cannot emphasize this enough. It's all about the art. If you're still going around feeling sorry for yourself, thinking that, oh, you see people who have thick, big, full hair, and you're like, oh, I could never, I'm not just lucky, and things like that, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, because it's not all about what you have, it's how you're able to play with it Anyway, let's move on. So when it comes to making your hair appear thicker than it is, or when it comes to creating that illusion that I've been talking about, it's all about volumizing your hair. And when you talk about volumizing, what you should be thinking about is how to make your hair poof out and, you know, spread out. How to make your hair poof out and how to make your hair spread out. Now, how can you achieve this with locks? I feel like with locks, you have added advantage because, you know, with loose hair, it's all about the art of creating that illusion and then, you know, you make it poofy and all of that. But with locks, you have the advantage that you have shed hairs. So it's not just about the art of playing with what you have. You have hair that naturally should shed out of your hair, but because you have locks, they remain in there. So it's basically all about taking advantage of those shed hairs and spreading it around your hair to ensure that you're getting the maximum thickness and benefit from those shed hairs. This is amazing. This is so amazing. I hope you guys are getting it, because if you understand this, you can transform your hair into something that is wow, and people are going to be like, how? Like, I never imagined that your hair could look like this. It is such a game changer. Now, the first thing you need to think about when you want to make your hair, when you want to create an illusion that you have more hair than you naturally have, is for you to take advantage of shrinkage. So even people who have straight hair, super straight hair, who are naturally born with straight hair, they understand this. Like many stylists who work with straight hair, they understand this, and that's why you see people who go to salons with stringy flat hair and then they come out, yes, they still have straight hair, but it looks so much bigger. That is an art, you know. And what you're doing is maximizing shrinkage. The more you compress the hair, the bigger it's going to look. And that's why I get really sad when I see people who fuss too much about their shrinkage when they're in the starter lock phase, because, oh, my hair is shrinking, I'm not happy, I want my hair to grow longer and all of that, because they don't understand that shrinkage is a blessing. The more you can get your hair to shrink, the more it's going to be compressed. And the more compressed your hair is, the bigger the individual lock strands are going to look. Now, if you're able to distribute your shed hair such that you do not just pull all your shed hairs to one area, if you're able to distribute your shed hairs along the length of the hair, the shrinkage is going to work in addition to those shed hairs, and your hair is eventually going to lock in that state. And that's why you get to see, like, if you look at my individual lock strands now, if you compare the size of my locks to the size of locks of other people who had similar hair density as me when they had loose natural hair, and who have similar number of hair, there's a very high chance that my individual lock strands look fatter than theirs. And that is because I take advantage of this thing I'm sharing with you now. Allow your hair to shrink as much as possible, but ensure that your shed hairs get distributed such that your hair locks in that shrunken state, and you have shed hairs in the shrunken state, and your hair is going to set in that fat stage. This is very important, and that's why I'm totally against using a comb to comb your hair when you retwist, because what you're basically doing is you're pushing all the shed hairs to one area, and then all the volume is going away from your roots. I'm going to talk about that later on in this video, but you don't want to be using a comb at all. You don't want to be using a comb at all when it comes to your hair, if your desire is to make it look as thick and as voluminous as possible. And the next thing you need to do if you have locks, you want to maximize this, is to ensure that as your hair locks, you make it as loose as possible. Now, shrinkage has a role to play in this, because the more your hair shrinks, the more poofy it is going to be, and it's going to also kind of help with the looseness. But you have to take this one step further to ensure that whatever method that you're using to start and eventually retwist or maintain your locks, you want to make it as loose as possible. What this does is it allows your hair to swell up. and so it creates room in your hair such that you have space for the shed hairs to remain, and then it will eventually lock like this. So think of your locks as a pipe, right? If you compress the pipe, there's a limit to what that compressed pipe can carry, right? Like if you're pouring water to fill up the pipe, let me use that analogy. So if you're pouring water to fill up a pipe that has been compressed, you have reduced the amount of volume of water that pipe can carry, and so eventually when you fill up that pipe, it's going to be slim. Think of your shed hairs as the water in this sense. Now, but if you loosen the pipe, right, it's going to probably take a little longer to fill up because now you have more space in it. But when you fill it up with the water, it has more room, and then the pipe is going to remain swollen. I hope you get what I'm trying to say. So as your hair locks, your shed hairs, you know, help with the whole locking process. So the more space you have in there, the more space your locks have for shed hairs to accumulate and for it to eventually lock. And the bigger it is, the looser your locks are going to be. If your hair looks fluffy and soft, then eventually when it locks, it's going to look more voluminous. Now the next thing that you need to do to help with the illusion is to keep your roots as thick as possible. I've said this 1,000,000 times already on my channel. Keep your roots as thick as possible. Stop combing out your roots when you retwist. Stop retwisting too tight to the point that your hair is flat. I know many of you who go a little long without retwisting. Yeah, and you guys see this happen all the time. Like when you first had a fresh retwist, your locks look flat and it looks less voluminous. But after a few weeks, as your roots start to poof up or as new growth starts to grow, your hair starts to look more voluminous. That is it. That is the answer you're looking for. So the more you can keep your roots poofy, the bigger your hair is going to look. Because when it comes to volume, remember what I said, it's all about keeping your hair poofy and spread out. So when you have hair at your roots, it lifts your hair up and helps it to spread out and to stand more, you know, and that creates an illusion that you have more hair than you actually do. Remember, if any of you had loose natural hair before you eventually started your locks, when you did braid outs and twist out and even wash and goes, remember that when we were done unraveling the braids, you take an afro pick to tease your roots. What are you doing? You're lifting your roots with an afro pick. You're creating volume at your roots, and that creates an illusion. And by the time you're done, if you can see, if you are really good with this, or even if you can't relate, go on YouTube and watch videos of braid outs and see people who mastered it to the point that you see their hair before they start to pick, it looks small, but as soon as they start to pick their roots, because they have created that kind of volume at their roots, their hair automatically looks bigger. That is what you're looking to achieve, or that is what you should be aiming for if you want maximum volume. Keep your roots as thick as possible. Now, I'm not saying go and take an afro pick and start to pick your roots because that could cause some, you know, breakage. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is when you retwist, don't do it too tight. The more poofy your roots are, the more voluminous your hair is going to appear to be. And the next thing you need to bear in mind is to push weight from down your locks higher. I talked about this in one of my other videos, so I'm going to link that video up in the iCard so I do not dwell too much on that. But basically, you see this really happen with people who have straight hair. If you watch hairstylists who handle straight hair, I feel like they are masters of this, you know, because when it comes to straight hair, you do not have shrinkage that you can use to help with the illusion. As you don't have as much shrinkage that you can use to help with the illusion. You don't have a coil pattern that you can use as compared to other people who have coily hair. But when you take your weight higher through having your hair cut in a shape, when you cut your hair in a shape, it kind of like creates layers. And with those layers, you're pushing volume towards your root or towards the top of your head. The more volume you have towards the top of your head, the more voluminous your hair is going to look overall. So I'll give you guys an assignment. Go ahead and watch, pick any video on YouTube, go and watch a video of a stylist transforming straight hair. Like maybe the person who goes into the salon with completely straight hair, all the hair is one length, then stylist goes ahead to give them a layered haircut. Compare the before and the after, and you're going to see the difference in, you know, volume, and you understand better what I'm trying to say. So when it comes to locks, you can get a layered haircut. I know when people hear haircut, they freak out. But this is what you can use. But even if you don't want to cut your hair into a shape, you can use styling techniques to help to mimic this look of having a layered haircut. And I talked about this in that video, so I'm just going to link that video up for you to go and watch if you're interested. If you've been following what I've been saying from the beginning of this video up until now, you see that it's just a tiny fraction that has to do with what you cannot change that affects how thick your hair looks at any given time. Most of the aspects that affect thickness are things that you can change or things that you have control over. So when you say that I have hair like this simply because I'm just blessed with thick hair, that's not the case. That's not true. It's very simple. It's so simple. It is super simple that it sounds unbelievable, but it works. If you can master how to play with your hair, how to use the art to just, it's like dancing, you know, just move your hair, arrange your hair, play in your hair, handle your hair in different ways. You can maximize what you already have to give the illusion that you have such huge big hair. And I wish everyone could understand this. I wish I could just like take everything I have in my head and put it in your head, and you know, give you the strength and the grace to practice everything, and then you get to see that it's possible. Anybody, basically anybody, can have thick locks. It's even easier with locks because now you have the added advantage of having shed hairs to play with. It's very simple, it's very basic, but you just have to believe that it's possible first of all, you know, because if you do not believe it, then you're not going to try it and do it consistently for you to see results. But basically anybody can have thick hair, thick locks. Like we used to say when we were done with debates in my secondary school, I believe that with these few points of mine, I've been able to convince you and not confuse you that basically anybody can have thick locks. So if you enjoyed this video, if you learned one or two things and you would like to work with me one-on-one, there are so many ways that you can do this. You can either enroll for my online course, where it's basically a step-by-step guide. Knowing all these things I've shared in this video, I created like step-by-step how to start, how to retwist, how to wash and style and things like that, how to cut your locks into layers. It is a course that contains pre-recorded videos, so you can follow the course in your own pace. I'm also available via email. You can send me messages and I'll definitely respond. If you want to take it a step further and you want to have like a one-on-one consultation with me, that is also available. The link will also be in the description box. All the links of everything I'm saying now will be in the description box, so you can book a 1-hour consultation with me, and then we talk. I see your hair, I hear your views, your problems, I know what you're dealing with, and then I can give you personalized advice. Or if you would rather have like a long-term consultation where it lasts like for a month, every week I hop on a 1-hour call with you to do like a check-in and basically just hold your hand along the way so that you get the maximum thickness that you can possibly achieve with your locks. That is also available. So all the links will be in the description box. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more videos from me, then definitely subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. I know that it has been almost 2 months since I uploaded a video. I have a valid reason why I've been missing. So I moved and it was supposed to be a 2-week break. But life happened, things just did not go as planned, and I just haven't had the space and the time to sit and make a video, and that's why you guys have not seen any video from me for, I think it should be about 2 months now. But I'm back and I am very excited to be back. I miss you guys so much. So how are you guys doing? Let me know down in the comment section. How is your year? How has your year been so far? How are you crushing your goals for the year? Let me know down in the comment section.